Welcome to Lead Stronger Longer, the podcast where we dive into the strategies and insights, the habits that help high performing leaders thrive in both work and life. I'm your host, Stephana Johnson. Today on Lead Stronger Longer, I'm excited to welcome Lisa E. Kirkwood. She's a modern Renaissance woman with an international background and an expertise that spans cultural diversity, empowerment, holistic living. She is also a Heroes Extraordinaire Award winner for cultural diversity, and she was honored with the Diversity Champion Award from Wells Fargo. She's the author of Higher Dimensions of Empowered Diversity and You've Got the Power. These are both set to be released soon. But beyond her accolades, she is a passionate advocate for equality, environmental causes, holistic medicine, and spirituality. Her work inspires individuals and organizations to embrace diversity and empowerment at every level. A woman after my own heart. Lisa, welcome to the show. Super excited you are here.
Thank you.
We always like to start with your favorite quote or mantra, maybe a guiding principle. What's yours?
Mine, this is actually something I came up with. If you have nothing to lose if you try, and everything to win if you succeed, why not give it your best shot?
I love it. So how does that show up in your life? Can you give us an example?
Yes, this is something I live by daily. Basically, don't quit. Just do it, and you never know when success will come back. Of course, you have to plan and strategize and get all the knowledge that is needed and have a clear goal. But most important, don't quit. Go for your dream.
Indeed. Okay, good. So go for your dream. A lot of times people won't quit something they need to quit, you know? And
Yes.
that's an interesting, I was like that, where I was like a dog with a bone that needed to let go of that bone and so, some of those bones. So I love that. I like understanding the perspective of how you use your guiding principle. And I think it's very worthwhile. So well done. I'm looking forward to seeing how this evolves in terms of how your journey through, I mean, you've got all of these components, and I love how you tie it in with holistic, the whole person, the whole organization. And that's something that's interesting to me. So I'd love to get your journey of becoming this, what were the pivotal experiences through this process?
Yeah, I would say a few benchmarks. First of all, was the revolution in 1989. I grew up in Romania, and in 1989 is when we toppled communism. So nations that were behind the Iron Curtain up until the early 90s, they finally found freedom. And the Western world has been opening to us ever since in different nuances. So that was a pivotal moment, and that's when Romania embraced wholeheartedly anything foreign culture. The next thing was actually moving from Europe to America in 2004. And that was also a defining moment because all the things that I had seen on TV, all the good stuff, including Christmas lights and things that seemed like out of a fairy tale, I got the experience firsthand. The experience of a shopping mall in Christmas time in 2004, back when it was still on a Christian note instead of happy holidays like today. It was almost magical. All the lights, all the shopping, the whole thing of shop till you drop. So that's something that was really interesting and very catchy for a new immigrant like myself back in the day. And I would say the third defining moment was moving to California. I used to live in Midwest for 14 years. And in 2018, I moved to California, and my professional horizons expanded exponentially. So that was the third benchmark. And I'm continuing to build upon my portfolio, refine my message, and reach larger audiences.
Yeah, so that's an incredible experience. I can imagine, I mean, what you're seeing now in the United States is probably very interesting. I would love to have a conversation about that, but I'm going to put a pin in that piece. because you said a lot of things, and while I want to pull apart, especially around the holidays and Christmas and how the true meaning of things have been annihilated, and now it's this shopping commercialism, and I'd love to get into that, but I'm not. We're going to move that over because I think that you can give our audience more insight on a couple of the pieces around maybe your, especially as you've been evolving, a personal and, because I always tie the personal and professional, but that professional challenge and how it's shaped you to be who you are today. Because clearly you've got your motto, and I can see that coming through in what you just explained to us, that you're going to, keep going. You keep doing these pieces. But professionally speaking, as a leader and wanting to have an impact in others' lives, and how did you create the sustainability that you are trying to create in the impact you're here to make?
Yes, that's it's a fairly easy explanation, but not necessarily an easy process. So when I came from Europe to America with all this multicultural knowledge, I didn't think much of it really. It was something I had taken for granted for many years. But then since the bank that I worked for, Wells Fargo, for almost 12 years, is one of those companies that highly value diversity. And I don't know if they have made any public statements, but they will never back down on that because they live and breathe diversity to the highest level. They actually noticed my cultural background, and they had a lot of diversity initiatives that were very resonating with my soul. So I participated in a lot of those activities, and I got diversity down to a T because I realized there are companies that do not offer diversity training at all, even larger ones. And those that do offer usually tend to stop at the primary dimensions, gender, race, age, and disability. Beyond that, there's not much else, if anything at all. And every year, businesses in the US are vulnerable to lawsuits because there are cases of discrimination, employee disengagement, and all that kind of stuff. So diversity-related issues in the workforce in North America, in the US, they amount to between $500 million and $1 billion in lawsuit costs, which is enormous. And a lot of this could be prevented just by a commonsensical approach. So now with the newest trends, we tend to brush away diversity, thinking it's only racial diversity. But that's a very narrow mindset because diversity is everything. There are as many nuances to diversity as there are people. You're talking cultural diversity, linguistic, religious, gender, anything you can think of. We are all diverse in our own ways. So by ignoring diversity, it's not doing oneself a favor, because again, the lawsuits potentially could happen. So when I created this program, Higher Dimensions of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and then exploring higher dimensions of empowered diversity, I did that with this thought in mind, because companies that do not offer proper training to their employees, they can potentially face costly lawsuits. So not only they can avoid that and help their own bottom line, but it is a given that diverse teams are more creative, more productive, more innovative, which leads to better positioning in the business world and acquiring new market segments, up to 50% in profits. You can get that if you understand diversity properly. It's not that complex of a notion, but it's not that simple either. So that's why I came up with this program, and I've been working with some professional organizations and presenting parts of it, because there's such a need to understand diversity in all its aspects, not just racial or just gender or just this and that's the end of diversity. It's not. It's going to go on as long as the human species exists, and we need to acknowledge each other and meet in the middle because we all have common values.
That is absolutely the best explanation I have ever heard around diversity. And I hope that we can get that piece, exactly what you just said, out to every channel that I can get it out. I'm going to make sure, because not only was it incredibly beautiful, but insightful, because I did not fully understand, because I think there is so much confusion and false information, and it stems from fear. And you said it, it's like it is, because ultimately we are all diverse. You explained it so beautifully, and we are all at the core of who we are ultimately all the same, right? So there's that beautifulness that when we can come from it from that place of understanding. I love how you said that. And then you also explained how, okay, if you're looking at it from the loss perspective, look at how much they've, it's just, there's just so much from, I had no idea how much the cost was, but any organization, any leader is going to have to take that into consideration. But the diversity piece has almost become something that creates a blame. I mean, that's a lot of the energy around it, but you didn't have any of that. So I really appreciate that. And I'm excited that to know you and to know that you're a resource for this. What an incredible, incredible gift. And your program sounds amazing. So what would you say then, if you're looking ahead 1, 5, even 10 years, how do you envision, and let's just say your legacy, because this is an incredible legacy, what you're creating. How do you envision that?
So you're talking in terms of exponential growth. If now I can get in front of a few hundreds of people with my message, with the passing of years, I hope that I can increase this number to thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions and more, because it's basically a global message of harmony and unity. So this is my legacy. When you talk legacy, is leave the world better than how you found it, right? So if I can bring people together through this message of unity, because I am looking for, I love diversity and I love differences, but first and foremost, I'm looking for the common ground of understanding what's in the middle. I was told by an investor who thought in really hard dollar terms, diversity is dead. Don't even mention it. And I'm like, no, now I'm gonna mention it more than ever. And it's not dead. It's not gonna die as long as human beings are alive. But what he said from an investor's perspective, he said, okay, if you want to continue with diversity, then you have to tell me two things. From a hard dollar standpoint, how much money can I make? And how much money can I save? And I'm like, okay, done deal. How much can you save? Again, think about the between 500 million and 1 billion a year in lawsuits by preventing potential lawsuits in your own company. And as far as how much can you make, whatever your current bottom line is, multiply that by at least 50%, because this is how much productive, diverse, and creative teams can contribute to increase your bottom line. So if that was the question, I hope that answers. So like, yeah, okay. So we left it at that. But, there's a valid point to it, because not everybody is into multicultural and harmony. They want to see the dollar signs, and these are the dollar signs. So there's something for everyone. I must say, though, the program itself had an interesting genesis, and myself, like a lot of other people, had to pivot during COVID times. That's when I came up with the idea of this program. It has to be comprehensive, and it has to cover what everything else on the market does not cover. For example, one of the modules in my program is about the human search for the divine and spirituality. In other words, how do you address religious diversity? A fragment of lawsuits come from religious diversity. And because they are not acknowledged, and they are not, for example, somebody has a celebration in their own religion, they're requesting the time off from their employer, they get denied, and they decide to file a lawsuit. That could be easily addressed and settled, and not even, even dust on your clothes if you acknowledge the fact that some people have other cultural values. It's that simple, yet that complicated. So this is one of the modules that I'm teaching, for example, the religious diversity, and you will not find that in any program on diversity out there, because it's such a controversial topic. The reason why I am so comfortable with this is because I have an international background, not only multilingual and multicultural, but I've embraced a number of religious traditions. And I realized that people see the same thing, but from different perspective. And this is what I'm going for, the common thread, what brings people together instead of what divides them. And this is what I'm teaching and what I want to continue to teach to employees and employers alike.
Oh my goodness. This makes me so happy just listening to you. Thank you for sharing this.
Thanks.
In terms of acknowledging the couple of things that you said, I'll just say that there's certain lessons that we all have to go through, I think. But ultimately, what I try to put out with leading and leading stronger, longer is that we each have to lead this. And as you were describing this, I'm thinking, okay, so HR, who would you'd bring this into? But really, you have to get to the leader, because the leader of the organization and then the teams have to understand this, because they're creating the culture, right?
Yes.
The subtle, it's so subtle. And you're completely right as you unpacked, okay, there's the dollar sign, but it's that subtle moment where they could have just avoided that destructive situation that would occur as a result of just not understanding, just not having empathy. And I think that that's really what you're teaching, is that's that holistic view. And I'm wondering, I'm just wondering, because there already is that niche of, okay, DEI, right? So diversity, equity, inclusion, and so that's your kind of component that has to go in there, but you do more than that. And then I also see you have the true stories merchant, and I see all, what you're creating with regards to your brand and bringing that to the forefront. It's more than just that piece. And I think that this idea that we get siloed, or we're only thinking this way, that as leaders we need to open up more and be able to envision that future where there is more of that harmony, and that I don't necessarily say inclusivity, where, okay, well, you arbitrarily have to bring someone in. And I'm curious as to what your take is on this, because I have been in organizations where it was almost forced to be together with another one, and it's almost like being in a family where there's just someone who's chronically angry, and you're like, I just, let's not get together. How about we not have a family reunion type of thing? And then in the organization, right, there's the conflict there. And I'm curious as to, at what point would you bring in the components of what you're teaching, and is it re-education that needs to happen? Because ultimately the structure, what's the structure that has to change and impact, especially, I mean, you were with Wells Fargo, so that's tens of thousands of people.
Yes.
And yet they've created it. So did it come from the top down? And I'm really curious as to how, like, everything you said, how does that actually work? How does that actually get implemented? And if you can give us more of an organizational structure, can you shed some light there? What does the leader have to know? What do they have to shift? What do they have to do? What are the steps that they would take in order to bring this kind of understanding to their culture, to their organization?
Yes, it starts with the basics, really. From the HR perspective, think about leadership as a mini segment of the workforce itself in that organization and of the market segment. Because if you have a monochrome leadership team comprised of, say, only white males, they're going to be out of touch with the female customer base, with the minority customer base, and the list can go on and on. Now, if you think about it, a lot of leadership teams exclude currently women and people from minorities. So that needs to change first and foremost, because again, when you're in the picture, you can't see the frame. This is one of my favorite quotes. It doesn't belong to me. I heard it before, but it makes total sense. So if you're boxed into a certain mentality, you won't be able to see what's going on around. A practical example on that, there's this, I was doing some research on Google, And there was this clothing and apparel company that decided to leverage within their diversity team some of the minority employees. So with that, they were able to open up new markets in Middle East because they were able to modify some of the designs of the clothes to cater to larger audiences. Previously unexplored markets, now they became available. So you have to have the leadership team should be a sample of the workforce and of the customer base. Because if you have a leadership team that is totally disconnected from who they're catering to, who do they serve, then you won't, first of all, you won't have the profits that you could have. And second, again, we're coming back to protect your business from lawsuits, promote diverse teams, and position your business for success. So it starts with the simple things. And then as far as HR policies, another module that I'm teaching is the HR Professionals Guide to Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. In other words, how to seek, hire, train, and retain, and then ultimately promote people of diverse backgrounds. And I can speak from experience because the team that I was in, it wasn't exactly a glamorous job. It was a call center, but the manager there, she was, included in the privileged white majority. But she was one of the people who could not get enough of the world. She had a big heart as big as the world, and she actively sought immigrants, people like myself with an accent, with whatever different background, in a team of 60 people. That's how many we were. I would say probably 50% were non-American born. So we had people from Romania, Ukraine, Cambodia, Korea, a few more things that I can't even think of, but Africa, Zimbabwe, we had Zimbabwe. And then, like almost half and half, think about it. And then when it came to results, we had some quota that we had to meet. We were knocking it out of the park. It was such a sweet and cool and unified atmosphere with all this diversity that was welcome, and like they were actively seeking foreigners, bring them in and bring all the expertise and the innovation and the creativity. And then our bottom line, our numbers were through the roof. And when we were doing employee surveys, we were scoring 5 out of 5 across the board. If that is not a measurement for success, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's excellent. So a couple of things. It's interesting because from everyone's perspective, we each have our own perspective. It's like the old adage, and I think it's a title of a book, walking a mile in someone else's shoes, or walk a mile in my moccasins, and those types of stories. Since you're a storyteller, that's the key. Is sometimes we forget that is that there is someone else there that has, we haven't walked in their shoes, so we don't really know. And I think it's a disservice when we create a generality that with regards to, well, there are so many businesses out there that don't, because we really, unless we know, that's why I want to get more specifics, and I appreciate you giving us the actual numbers on things. The concept around what you said with regards to being unified, as you describe the entire diverse, I can see this call room in this diverse room, or call center, maybe there's people all over the world, and yet you were completely unified, and then the outcome was this superior outcome. I think that's what we want to shoot for, right? That's the common purpose of creating that, and if that can actually happen without it becoming this white privilege thing, because I am a white girl, and right, so this white privilege is such an assumption, and it does a disservice to the white as well. And I can tell you, I think that's where we really have to be mindful that it's not an all or nothing. And I do get it with regards to all the, the suits and this and all of that. But again, if we are really coming from this holistic place, Lisa, I wonder what your take is on this, especially because you have a holistic medicine understanding and you're not just authoritarian and like, this is how we're going to do this. What is your take with regards to leaders being more resilient and leading stronger, because we have to be resilient at this stage, right? With everything that's changing. My God, you came from 1989, a total, I feel like almost that's where we're at, is it's this communist state here, because we're blinded by that image. So I'm just curious what your take would be then on, you said going through it's simple. You start with the basics. Yes, and right. Yes, and so is let's just take it a little bit further than even the basics, because maybe there isn't a recognition because there's already a block. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I know what you mean.
Okay.
So when it comes to the basics, I don't mean by that say we start at the HR level. I don't mean by that let's do some token hiring just so we can check a box and we are compliant with the state laws or organizational laws. That's not it, because in the end it's going to backfire. People, even those that you hire on a token basis, they will feel disengaged, not listened to, and they will not perform well because they are there just to check that box. Okay, so when you realize, I think it starts with the mindset first and foremost. So if you are to break it down further, the necessity of understanding why diversity is important in the first place. Because again, when you talk diversity, you can equate that. So DEI equals ROI, it equals a return on investment. And what do we invest most in? What is the most valuable resource? People. Organizations that invest in people are those that will reap a higher ROI. And when you talk unity and the common goal, that doesn't have to be complicated. You have a quota that you need to meet. And how can you meet it? First of all, have an open dialogue. Diversity starts at the door. Make sure that it's open, that people can bring in their ideas. I was personally, since I've always been fascinated by books, and reading and writing are one of my top passions. I liked to contribute written content. I ended up being an editorialist for newsletters in my department there, because I always had access to my direct supervisor and to my manager. I'm like, I have this idea for an article. What if we highlight our teams when we went and cleaned up the park, or when we went and did the Habitat for Humanity, or this, that, and the other? People will come up with the most interesting ideas that you could never think of. Listen to what they have to say. At the very least, they will feel empowered enough to be considered. Ultimately, the idea may or may not get adopted, but if it does, and if it does resonate with maybe bringing new market segments, they say, okay, so I'm from Middle East, let's say I'm from Pakistan, and I know my cousin has a company of 50 employees that I think we could make a collaboration. What if we do like a joint venture, or I can bring a new market in? It would be a foolish initiative for a leader to shut that down. At least listen, for goodness sake. It's the simple thing that you could do. Think about it. What if that thing really works, and this new employee who feels so listened to and cared for is bringing in new business? Some people will shut it down. No, it's beyond your pay grade. Just do what you're expected to do. And that's when diversity dies, that's one instance when it dies. The initiative dies, creativity dies, and the profits will suffer.
I
So
love it. I think that it could be called possibility instead, because everything you just described was about possibility. And I think that diversity may have, like the investor, that it's been kind of tainted or made into this make wrong, used to point fingers and to create chaos. And chaos merchants love that. But what you're describing is possibility. What's possible? What can we create with, from the market segments you were talking about to the articles and the ideas that you were creating in this collaboration? That's what gets me excited, and I hope other leaders will get excited about that and what you've just shared. Incredible, incredible. And that's what I would love to get behind with regards to anything that has to do with diversity, equity, inclusion, call it what you will. It's about possibility. It's about unity. It's about harmony. It's about creating something that's better in this world and leaving the place better, which I love as to what you shared. As we close, you mentioned books. What are your favorite? If you have a top one or even three, I love book recommendations.
Oh yeah, I do. I would say in order of age, starting with, well, this is a little known title, I can tell you. It's called The Legends of Mount Olympus, and it's about Greek mythology, which is my absolute favorite in the whole world. And it's written by a Romanian author. So that would probably not be known to the global public. The second is Dragon Seed by Pearl Buck, who was a female American writer, winner of Nobel Prize. I actually wrote a piece of an article on her on Women's History Month. She was a trailblazer and a pioneer in many aspects. And then again, going backwards in age is Jungle Book. I actually love Jungle Book and pretty much everything that Rudyard Kipling wrote. So yeah, it was a bit ahead of my age because I grew up on legends, and to this day, fantasy genre is my favorite. So I grew up on Greek mythology, heroes and gods. I was like, what, 11, 12 when I was reading that, a bit ahead of my age, but it stayed with me and it's gonna stay forever. I love fantasy genre.
Oh my goodness, thank you for those recommendations. I haven't read Jungle Book in years, and the allegories alone right there are just so so appropriate for our conversation. I enjoy Pearl Buck very much, so I will look for that book. And then Legends of Mount Olympus. I'm sure there's some nuggets in there that will be supportive, and our readers love the book recommendations. So I'm thankful for those that are definitely outside of our norm. Normally, we are always getting some kind of business book, so this is very fun. Thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to end it with how can our listeners connect with you or follow your work?
That's easy. Through my website, I have contact information on there. So the website, the truestoriesmerchant.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn, Lisa E. Kirkwood. So make sure you type my full name so you get the right person. And the phone number is 323-364-3757. I offer customized consultations, one-on-one and group consultations, anything on diversity and empowerment, leadership. And now I kind of married the two concepts, empowered diversity. So this is like even a few notches up because we need to up our game on diversity. So we're not clinging to the past. We don't get it like a cursed word, diversity, yeah, and you run for the hills. There's no reason to.
That's
It's a
right.
beautiful thing. Diversity is beautiful. Equity is fair, and inclusion will make us thrive in our global communities.
Yes, and pure possibility there. I love it. Well, thank you, Lisa. I so appreciate your time and for sharing your incredible insights and your passion for diversity and your passion also for empowerment of that, of creating unified harmony within the workplace, because we can see with your stories that there is an incredible positive impact. So thank you for that. And your journey and your work remind us that true leadership embraces not just professional success, but also cultural awareness, personal growth, and a commitment to making the world a better place. But for our listeners, if you have felt inspired by Lisa's work, be sure to check her out at thetruestoriesmerchant.com. I will make sure we have the links in there. She gave her phone number. So if you heard that phone number, then you can use that. Usually I don't give out folks' phone number because sometimes people call, but I think she wants to be called, and she will talk to you about her incredible knowledge and expertise. Clearly, she has the experience and the wherewithal to bring an incredible gift to any organization and team. And I think that is priceless. So I will leave it there. And until next time, keep leading with purpose, health, and heart as you lead stronger, longer. Thank you again, Lisa.
Thank you.